Yes, I see the charges. I know I have to apply the law, but a lot of times there's those underlying issues as to why people may be in their situations. And that gives me an opportunity to learn a little bit more about their story and connect them with the resources. And what I say is there's so many resources out here in the community, but the people who need the resources don't know always about those resources.
Yes.
And that's why I'm so big at trying to be out in the community, find out what is going on, what services are out there.
Substance use disorder touches all our lives, and often we feel hopeless or frustrated in our pursuit to understand how and why it happens.
Welcome to APC Recovery Cafe, where we discuss the topics and trends around substance use, provide education and resources, offer recovery support, and also discuss prevention tactics, all through the stories of the people who have been there.
We invite you to grab your favorite coffee or tea and join us for a variety of guests that will bring understanding, information, connection, and hope.
Together, we can break the stigma and pave a brighter future for each other.
Hey folks, welcome into this episode of the APC Recovery Cafe. My name is Art Wimberly. I'm a person grateful to be in long-term recovery. I'm a volunteer at the Addiction Prevention Coalition. And this morning in the studio, we have the Executive Director of APC, Carrie Wimberly. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Arthur.
Arthur, are we being formal today?
That's what your mother used to call you.
It is true. If Mother were here, she would not know.
So when you're in trouble,
Art,
it's Arthur.
That's right. Yeah. So, Carrie, as usual for the podcast, we have an interesting guest in the studio. Would you like to introduce her?
Yes, we're so excited today to have the Honorable Maria Fortune here with us, and she is our newest APC board member, which we're extra excited about. Judge Fortune serves as the criminal district court judge, and we know her as the drug court judge in Jefferson County. And she agreed to take time out of her busy schedule and come and talk with us, and we're so excited to have her with us. So welcome.
Welcome. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me today.
Yes, thanks for being here. So we always like to start out with our morning beverage, and I will have to say that this is an unusual one. So she chose the Boost, and it's chocolate.
Chocolate only.
Chocolate
only
Boost.
Chocolate Boost.
Yep, balanced nutritional drink. So very healthy.
Yes.
So tell us about this, and when did this start?
So it started probably in January of this year.
Okay.
And so I during the holidays, I probably did too much binge eating.
Yes.
And so
we
I
all
decided,
did.
I went to the doctor, and a doctor said all of my numbers were off. And so I said, well, I need to start making a lifestyle change. And so I joined the gym, start working out every single day.
Wow.
And as a result, in the morning, I'm so busy to make a full breakfast.
Yes.
And trying to get children ready.
Yep.
I resorted to the Boost.
Okay.
And so it gives me the protein that I need as well as the vitamins that I need, and then it holds me over until lunch.
Yeah.
And so it's been a great new fixture to my morning breakfast.
So still doing Boost from
Boost.
January, and still
Yes.
going to the gym.
Still going to the gym. I'm 27 pounds down since
Wow.
January. So,
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. But I tried multiple flavors,
Yep.
and all the other ones were kind of chalky tasting,
Yes.
and this one was more just like a chocolate shake. So
Yeah.
that's why I only go with the chocolate Boost.
Nice.
Yes.
So what's your favorite? Do you do classes at the gym? You just do
So
your own workout?
Originally I was at F45, and that was kind of I guess kind of like a HIIT workout where we
Yes.
did up and down, and they unfortunately closed.
Okay.
And so I had to scramble and find something new toward the end of January.
Okay.
And I joined Base Camp over in Cahaba Heights. And so it's different. It's a 60 seconds to ride a bike for 60 seconds, and then you do some type of lifting weights, and then you go back and ride the bike. So it's 60 seconds on, 60 seconds off. And so
Wow.
I've had to learn how to ride a bike that I'm not too fond of, but it's definitely working for me, so I'm sticking with it.
That is excellent.
Yeah, so, and then I go
Congratulations.
home and get my Boost afterwards.
There you go.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. We always joke that, we've had very few duplicates, which is interesting. Everybody has their own thing, but this is definitely our first boost.
Yes, no, it is definitely different. My husband frowns on me. He's like, "This is what you're having for breakfast?" Because beforehand, I would make breakfast for everybody in the morning, and now he doesn't get breakfast.
I was trying to say that was more of a personal
So
issue.
I was like, So he's like, "No eggs and bacon." It's like, no,
This is it.
Yeah.
But you could offer him a boost.
Yeah, that he's not interested in that at this time.
Now, do I understand correctly that your husband is also in the legal profession?
He is.
right?
And so he is a partner at Bradley Arant.
Okay.
He does cybersecurity and white-collar crime. So,
gosh.
And that's kind of what brought us here. He was originally at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And
Okay.
He did all the human trafficking and cybersecurity there.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, does both of you being in the legal profession actually make it easier for a marriage or tougher?
Oh, probably tougher because we both like to, we always want the last
word to argue. Yeah.
So
Plead your case.
Yes, all the time.
Yeah.
But
Call a new witness.
now he is like, he just says, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am."
Smart man.
Yeah. That's what he says. He's like, yeah, because you're gonna keep on going until you get the last word.
Yep, Art's really evolved into that as well. He's
I
picking
used to
his-
always have to have the last word.
Yes, picks his battles.
Yeah, that's
now.
what my husband does too.
Yep.
So you mentioned coming to Birmingham. So where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Denver, Colorado.
Nice.
So we've been here now 17 years.
Oh, wow.
And so it is home now, and don't plan on going back to Denver at all.
Okay. Yeah, we were talking before we got on air. We have a son that lives in Littleton. So we love to visit.
Yeah.
Don't know that I would ever live there due to the amount of snowfall.
Yeah,
But
and
it
that's
is a beautiful, beautiful place.
It is beautiful, and that's the part I do miss. Like, it's so bright there. The
Yes.
sun is so bright, and then you
Yes.
can get all the seasons in one day.
Yep.
And when we were there, we did a lot of hiking and biking while we were there. So I do
Yes.
miss that aspect of it.
Yep.
But I don't miss the snow at
Yeah.
all. So
The falls are beautiful. The
Yeah.
springs are beautiful. They're just short. Like I love planting and gardening, and I always joke with my son, like, okay, have you had your last snowfall?
Right.
And like it's usually in May. So the growing season is so short, by the time you actually can start planting
And you're
things.
so right. So like and I still do it now. Like I always miss the time frame when to cut my trees back.
Yeah.
Because I'm always on the Colorado schedule.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not until May. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh, here I got to cut them back in like end of January or
Yes.
February. And so for the longest, I always miss that time frame
Yep.
to cut my trees back because they haven't started planting their flowers or anything in
Exactly.
Denver yet. So it's, we probably had our flowers out for a couple months now. So it is a huge difference and an adjustment that I had to make once I moved here.
So when you were young, I always wanted to be in the legal. You did.
I did. I probably knew I
So
wanted to be a
interesting.
lawyer and a judge probably around the age of 12 or 13.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
How
And
in the
so-
world? Anybody in your family?
So it's kind of it's a unique story. And
Okay.
so I went to private school growing up, but I lived in the inner city. And so a lot of times the kids around my neighborhood were finding themselves engaged in the criminal justice system. And I knew them as people who were great people, just made bad choices, or
Yep.
maybe sometimes they were in bad situations at home.
Yep.
And a lot of times when they would go into court, they would always say, well, the judge didn't listen to my story, or, they didn't understand why I didn't do certain things. They just looked at what my charge was, and that's how they judged me. And so I always said that I wanted to be able to be a lawyer to represent indigent clients who may not have the financial ability to provide or get the representation,
Yeah.
and that I always wanted to be able to become a judge so that then I can listen to their whole story to find out what's going on with them to get them the proper help that they need. And so that was something that kind of just stuck with me as a child.
That is so interesting because, and I was thinking this morning, I always try to think about who we're talking to. And I was just thinking one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was that exact thing. Because, and I've told Art when, APC does tabling at drug court. And so we get the opportunity to sit in during those sessions, which is, both sad and fascinating and encouraging, all
in
wrapped
one.
into
Yes.
one. But even conversations I've had with you about, situations that, I'm watching, I was trying to think of a term for it, but it's almost like a firm gracefulness or something in you.
No.
Like, you give people every opportunity to figure it out while they're there, as an opportunity to turn things around.
Yes.
And so there is so much compassion in the way that you lead that courtroom, and yet firmness,
Yeah.
so that if that opportunity is missed and that one's missed and that one's missed, then the consequences that you have told them are come.
Yes.
But even in conversation, I know we were talking about a specific situation, and I just said, yeah, that looked kind of bleak there. And you said, that's just the nature of addiction.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, don't look at the person behind the problem.
Right.
Because there's a person there.
And that's what I always tell them. I always tell them when they first plead into drug court that everybody has a purpose in life.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can get derailed in regards to what our purpose is here. And I try to instill in them that, I want them to have the respect for themselves, the respect for the court, but also know that there's good in them also.
Yes.
And so I try to bring that out in our drug court program and help them find themselves. And a lot of times sometimes there's different resources that they may need that they just aren't aware that are out there to help them get themselves out of certain situations.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm always, that's why I have you all there to make sure that they know, okay, this resource is out there that may help benefit them to help them become who that I know that they're capable of becoming.
Yes, and the resources that are right in your courtroom. Somebody that's sitting right there. If you need a job, go and talk to this man. If you need this, they're sitting in the courtroom.
Right. And that's what I
Just
always try to do, that
fascinating.
holistic approach, and to do a warm handoff, because I can say, go over here to this location.
Right.
But the likelihood is there's barriers, there's transportation barriers.
Yes.
But if they're able to talk to you
Yep.
and they see that you care just as much as, our case managers, then they're more apt to follow through with those resources and services that you may be offering them.
And I love that in certain situations you have them write papers.
Yes, I do.
And so the last time I was in there, and I will start crying. And my staff said, I'll come back from the podcast. Did you cry today? I was like, yes, I did. But the last time I was in there, you had somebody read their paper, and they were graduating. And I'm starting to tear up. And he was talking about the suit. It was the suit.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember that?
I do.
Oh my gosh. And he was just saying that, seeing the other attorney there, African American man dressed so nicely. Like that was his first exposure.
Right.
And he wanted that,
Yes.
and that he was going to continue to follow his path and get his job and get his career set up so that he could buy himself a suit.
Yes.
And then
And they said they were going to buy him a suit.
Exactly.
And they did purchase him a suit. And he hasn't, I guess the guy who they purchased it from, because they were going to get it tailored.
Yes.
I think he had some kind of emergency in his family. And
Okay.
so they're getting it tailored. And I think he's going to wear it to court in the next week or two.
Oh, my
so
gosh. I
I'm
may
so
need to- I may have to
excited
come
to see
back.
him in his suit. And so, but yeah, there was two people that said they would buy him a suit.
Yes.
The Connex,
Yes.
Julius Parker said he would buy him a suit, and then another attorney
Yes.
stood up and said he would purchase him a suit too. And
Yes.
so, and he's been doing very well, and so I'm so excited. I can't wait to see him in a suit, because he had said he'd never seen anybody
Exactly.
in a suit before.
And I mean, I
which
was sitting there
like,
thinking, that's so odd. But then when you follow the story,
Right.
it's not odd.
It's not.
But to give them that exposure
Right.
so that they can look on that and come up with that hope and come up with that drive
Right.
is beautiful. And that happens in
all the
drug
time.
court.
It does. And I had a mom the other day who just out the blue sent me an email, and she said, I've seen such a difference in my child. And
Oh, wow.
she's like, I don't know what you're doing. And she's like, the encouragement that you all are giving him and the resources, he's ready to go back to nursing school.
Wow.
And so she's like, he was getting a little discouraged. I guess he had some issues with his vehicle that broke down the other
Yes.
day. And she said, can you just encourage him when he comes into the courtroom? That those just couple of words that you may give him will help encourage him to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
And so I made sure, I told the case managers the other day, I said, make sure you put him on the docket for next week so
Wow.
that we can make sure, because I want to make sure we're doing everything to keep pushing them forward to be
Yes.
the best that they can be.
Yeah.
In story and in myth and sacred stories, clothing like that, like a suit, is to restore dignity.
Yes.
So, can you talk a little bit about that concept of dignity in your court?
Yeah, that's huge in my courtroom as far as making sure that they have like I said, the respect for themselves. But we definitely try to make sure that, I have some great case managers that are on our team that make sure that they are well trained, to make sure that we're giving them everything that they need. And it's not just a cookie cutter, like
Yes.
everybody does the same thing or gets the same treatment. We
Yeah.
want to make sure that it's tailored to the needs of each individual who comes to our court. And what I can say is, as far as like we just recently were able to have counselors now that are located right there in the courthouse,
Oh, wow.
that are now providing counseling for the trauma. And
Yes.
For the
Wow.
Yes.
and I think that's just huge, going with the dignity and in helping them understand, and that we're here to support them in all levels. And so I'm just really big at making sure that the staff and the people that are around me too have the same beliefs that I have, and that are willing to sow into our drug court participants as I am.
And you can really feel that.
Yeah.
And language, the
Yes.
language that you use in the courtroom when you address each one of them, very professional, very honoring.
Dignified, and
Yes.
restoring
And
dignity.
I'm all about treating everyone with respect.
Yes.
So, everybody's human,
Yep.
and sometimes we make mistakes, but they're still human. And so we need to make sure that we're lifting them up versus tearing them down, because they have the world around them that's constantly tearing them down.
Yes.
And so I want them to come in there and feel safe, that we're here to support them. Like you said, that we're stern when we need to be stern, but I want them to feel like it's a safe space. And that's what I tell them so many times when they come into our drug court program. They already have a perception that, we're here to lock them up or send them
Yes.
to prison.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, in order to be successful here in our drug court program, but just in life, you're going to have to start being honest.
Yep.
And honesty starts with yourself, as well as being honest not only with me, but with our case managers, our peers, our counselors,
Yep.
whoever we're putting in your path to help you be that better person.
Well, I know in our, we do a family support group, I have for years, but there was one instance where there was a family that had been with us for years, and their son had really struggled, ended up in drug court, but then, graduated from drug court. So, as we go around in the circle and share, and kind of catch up with where everybody is, and they announce, hey, we went this last week, we went to the drug court graduation for our son or whatever. And and the room just erupted, like we're all clapping, and, and I said, okay, just, for context, like as a parent, I cannot imagine that I would have been in a room in a circle celebrating that somebody graduated drug court. But it's an accomplishment.
It's a huge accomplishment.
And it can be really transformational. So I know when we're talking to families and there's some sort of legal issue, we're like, hey, don't fight the drug court. That can be a very redeeming place, for our loved ones.
Yeah, and a lot of times sometimes some of the attorneys don't understand the benefit of
Yes.
applying their clients into drug court, and that's why we're going to be doing actually a training in the next month, just so that they can be aware of like all the resources, the wraparound services that we have for them,
Yes.
and how it can benefit them and how rewarding it is to their client, as well as the accountability. A lot of them want to be held accountable,
Yep.
and that drug court program provides them for it. And then also just the helping them reunite with their families. Like
Yes.
that is so huge. And so I'm a big advocate of, I want to see your family in court with you, because
Yep.
then I know you have a support system when you leave here.
Yeah.
And sometimes they may not know how to necessarily support you, but then they run into APC in the hallway that can help them and tell them about the family resources.
Yeah.
And so I'm always, glad to see when I see them. And that's why I usually ask, like, do you have any family in the audience? Because I want them to come up also so that they're a part of it, because it takes a village really to continue to support you through that process.
Yep. And I remember the last time I was there, a father was there, and you invited the father up and
Yeah.
said, hey, talk to me about what you're seeing, the positive changes you're seeing. And he was able to speak to that.
Yeah, and it's
Very
just so
sweet.
rewarding when
Oh,
you
my
can see,
gosh.
like, the families see the difference that, drug court is making. And so that just warms my heart to say, okay, this is really working
Yes.
for the people that are in the program.
But it's got all the, ingredients that can really help somebody turn things around.
Yeah.
It has the accountability, it has the resources, it has the counseling, it has, it's almost like a strong family structure. We're going to love you,
Yes.
but we're also going to hold you accountable.
Yeah. And that's what we definitely do. And ex-con Julius Parker,
Yes.
he has been a godsend to helping our drug court participants with getting their IDs and their social
So
security
how did he
cards.
get involved?
I met him one day out at an event, at a resource event.
Oh, my goodness.
And told him when our drug court day was, and he saw what we were doing. And after that, he was
He's
like
I'm
a
in.
fixture. Yeah, he was in, and I mean, he's there almost every Thursday.
He's always there.
Yeah, always. I feel like
Yep.
he needs to be on my staff.
Yeah.
I feel kind of selfish because I know other judges are like, why are you always in Judge Fortune's court?
Yes.
But I mean, he's actually gone and picked up some of our clients and transported them to different facilities, or he'll go and pick them up and take them to different job interviews.
Yeah.
And so he's just been a really great asset to the program of
Yeah.
helping individuals. So
That passion
Yeah,
that
and he
has
is-
come out of
yeah,
that.
sometimes they
story.
won't open up to the case manager, but they'll open up to him.
Yeah.
And then that at least helps me guide
Kinda like a
them out.
peer.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what it has been. I mean, and he has a true testimony too,
Yep.
that they feel like they can relate to him like they do with some of our peers.
Well, walk us through, like, I jumped to drug court because I was too
It's
excited. Walk us through, like, how did you get to drug court? Like, I don't really understand how the legal works, but, like, where have you been?
Okay, so when I graduated from law school, and like I said, I've always wanted to be in the field of helping people. So I started as a public defender in Colorado, and I worked as a public defender for several years there. And at the time, my husband was a district attorney, and so
wow.
he was a DA, I was a public defender, and like, how does that work? And so the office I worked at, they were true believers. They were like, you cannot associate with any district attorney. And so I think I got called into the office one or two times, like, we heard you were out on a Saturday with a district attorney. I was like, I'm dating a district attorney. And they actually moved us. So they moved us an hour away from each other. So he was in Denver, and I had to go move to Colorado Springs.
Oh,
because
gosh.
they didn't want us nowhere in the same counties together.
Oh, wow.
And so I stayed there for about a year and a half, and I was like, I just can't do this.
Yeah.
And so although I still wanted to stay in the field of helping, I ended up at the city attorney's office in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And I did the dependency and neglect cases. So I represented social workers who were dealing with families that a lot of the families were unfortunately dealing with a substance abuse disorder
Yeah.
and had lost custody of their kids.
Wow.
And during that time, I was a huge believer that we need to do everything we could to try to reunite the families together.
Yeah.
And so I worked there for several years. And then when we got engaged, my husband ended up getting a job in D.C. at Main Justice. And we were supposed to move to D.C. And I didn't follow that path.
So what happened?
So during the engagement phase, I was supposed to come out toward the end, right when we were supposed to get married. And I waited until we got married. And I told him, I was like, I'm not going to D.C.
Ooh, wow.
And hadn't you already taken the bar?
So I had did all the paperwork. So I didn't actually have to take a bar in
Okay.
D.C., but I had got all my paperwork and had been licensed in D.C.
Okay. Because I saw you had been
And so,
licensed in
yes.
DC.
And so on our honeymoon, and that's how I know, I was like, God had to be a part of it. On our honeymoon, before we were about to board, he got a call from Alabama, the U.S. Attorney's Office here. And they said, we have a position open here at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Would you be interested? And I was like,
And then you grabbed the phone
and
and
I
said,
said, I don't know what Alabama looks like. I've never been, but I will go to Alabama over D.C. And that started our path here
Wow.
to Alabama. And so when I came here, I thought I wanted to go back to representing social workers and do the dependency and neglect cases, but they didn't have an opening at that time. And
Okay.
so I decided to open up my own practice.
okay.
And I still did a lot of work I did criminal work. And so I still was in criminal court, but then I also did a lot over in family court. I represented children who had delinquency cases, and then I also represented the families that DHR were involved in. And then I did some divorce and custody work. And so a lot of the clients that I was working with always had substance abuse issues as one of the underlying issues as to why they were either engaged in the criminal justice system or as to why they had lost custody of their kids.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to be a judge, and I always thought I'll be a judge in family court to, deal with children and families and help in that area. But when Judge Owens, she was the drug court judge at the time, and she
Yes.
had applied for Judge Petrel's position, and Judge Petrel had retired, and she got that position, and everybody said, you would be great at drug court. And I had never saw myself over in criminal court, but I realized, that still gave me an opportunity to help people on a larger scale dealing with the drug cases.
Yes.
And so I went ahead and I applied for that position. And I was selected by the governor and appointed by the governor to become that next district court judge over drug court.
What a perfect.
And so, and
fit.
since then, and it's been great because I'm still able to, like I said, be able to help people on a larger scale. And as I stated, as a kid, it was always, I want to hear, yes, I see the charges. I know I have to apply the law. But a lot of times there's those underlying issues as to why people may be in their situations.
Yes.
And that gives me an opportunity to learn a little bit more about their story and connect them with the resources. And what I say is there's so many resources out here in the community, but the people who need the resources don't know always
Right.
about those resources.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's why I'm so big at trying to be out in the community, find out what is going on, what services are out there. And that's why when you come in my courtroom, you see all that paperwork and
Yes.
pamphlets.
Yes.
Those are just the different resources I'm finding out in the community so that if I hear something that someone says, I can say, hey, this may be beneficial for you.
There's a piece of paper right
Here,
there.
and call them. They
Yeah.
may be able to help you with what you may be going through.
And I think you're on the board of Family Court,
So I'm on the Jefferson County Family Resource Center board.
which is,
And so-
I'm a big fan.
Yes, and they're
That
doing some amazing
Amazing
work.
things.
Yes,
Yes.
they
And a lot of
are.
people do not know
Yes.
all that they offer, but
Yeah.
like the Restore
They
program.
have the Restore program, and that
Yes.
is with the mayor's office.
Yes.
And they're going out into the community and working with individuals who may have been justice impacted and their families. And so they're providing those wraparound services for not only the children, but for the families too.
Yeah.
And then they have it's a HEAT program where they
Yes.
have classes that they offer the kids that
Yeah.
kind of address all aspects of their lives. So it addresses, maybe living in a home with a single parent or, maybe living, dealing with gun violence in the community. So it touches on those day-to-day basic topics that they may
Yep.
be addressing. So they do some great resources. They have the food drive I
Yep.
think it's twice a month. They do it at the family courthouse. And then I think today they're doing it over at
Yep.
the Bessemer
And we're always
courtrohouse,
there too.
and they
yeah.
give food out to
And that's
everyone in the
amazing.
community.
Yes.
And so they're doing great things. And then I'm also
Yep.
on the Work Faith Birmingham
Yes.
board, and they just had the Second Chance Job Fair yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that.
And they said they had over 570 people who came out for
Wow.
employment yesterday, and so that was just such a blessing.
Wow.
And those jobs are designed to help individuals who are justice impacted, or either have prior criminal charges or
Yep.
even convictions, or are currently in the criminal justice system.
Yep.
So Danny Carr is doing a great job as the
Yes.
district attorney of making sure that people, even though they may be engaged, that there's still resources out there to help them
Yep.
get back on track.
Yep.
Well, one thought that came to me was you had mentioned earlier that you're soon are going to be doing kind of a educational training for attorneys, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, it takes a lot of effort to do what y'all do in drug court. You could just kind of go by the book; it'd be a little bit easier. And I know there was a legacy from Judge Owens that kind of paved the way too.
Yes.
But what do you see as the trend in terms of whether it's county or municipal courts that are dealing with these issues? Do we see where people are starting to willing to make that effort, or are we still kind of stuck? And without naming names and areas or anything like that, do you think that we're getting better at this type of thing in court systems, or is it still a big struggle?
I do feel like we're getting better because we have more people who are on board. So you have the district attorney, you have, the attorneys. I think sometimes it just goes that the attorneys may not be educated about what drug court or mental health court or veterans court provides for their clients. But I do see, and then we have so many other agencies and resources out there. And so I do feel as when you look at the criminal justice system that more people are on board and trying to have these alternative diversion programs for individuals who may be dealing with substance abuse disorder. Unfortunately, every judge in every county handles their drug court differently.
Exactly.
And so it's so hard to say, I don't know what they may be doing in a different county. All I can do is just make sure as far as like the resources that we have. But what I can say is usually sometimes we'll have clients who are in drug court in St. Clair County and in Jefferson County. And the judges here in Alabama have been really good at working with each other. So instead of making their clients do two different drug courts, they may say, hey, if you live in Jefferson County and you're doing what Judge Fortune needs to do, we'll honor what she's doing in her courtroom, or vice versa. I may reach out to the St. Clair County judge and say, hey, what are you doing? And we'll have more conversations. So I do feel like we're able to communicate more, and more judges are on board with offering these diversion programs.
And there's like a conference or something.
There is a conference, and so they have the NADCP conference, and I hate that I missed it. I mean, it is an amazing conference to attend. I think the last one I went to, I want to say there was over 5,000 people there.
Wow.
And that was from district attorneys, judges, law enforcement, and so they were all on board, and they had different tracks for each one of us to follow to help us be able to basically give us different ideas on how we can be successful in helping individuals with substance disorder. And I think the conference is actually occurring toward the end of this month.
Yeah.
And I was unable to go this year, but I'm hoping to go next year because you come back so energized. Yeah. You see what other states are doing and
sharing
ideas.
Yes.
And so it has been amazing. And I think that has been helpful with us being able to also get, we work with UAB, and that's our partner with the community justice programs with Mr. Dantzler, who is also on the board, and they provide amazing resources for us. And I have to say we're blessed in Jefferson County because all the different counties don't have the resources that we have here, right here in the county. So. But I do feel like it's definitely coming around. I don't think 20 years ago we would have had the different resources that we can rely on. Now, we definitely need more.
Yes.
And definitely more probably inpatient facilities that I see, just because there's so many people who are qualifying for a 3.3, which is an inpatient, and there's the long wait. Yes. And sometimes I feel like we lose them when they have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get into a treatment facility that we need right away. But I can say that even just from when I took the bench 5 years ago, I can see that the resources are definitely increasing and more people are on board of helping individuals with
and to try to connect all the pieces together. I feel like we lose people in the gaps, like organizations or where you could actually go to detox, inpatient, outpatient, sober living. If all of that was seamless, I feel like we could offer people a better.
I agree with you. And that's kind of where I actually was having this conversation with some of my case managers last week, is that it's so important that we're having a smooth transition. Yes. And so, because what sometimes we'll see is a person will go to detox for 7 to 15 days. Yep. And then, they need to then go directly into an inpatient treatment facility. And it's not available. Then there's a wait. And so, what can we do more to, like you said, bridge that gap where there's not any downtime, because we get them detoxed and then they have to go right back into that same environment, but they don't have the coping skills or the techniques that they need in order to be able to say, okay, this is not what I can do at this time. And then they're right back in that same situation. So when that inpatient bed comes available,
Yes.
we now need to detox them again. So
Exactly.
that is something that that we all need to work on
Yep.
and start trying to communicate better to make sure that those gaps don't happen so frequently.
Yep. You were the impetus for us to add a page to our website for restoration resources. Judge Fortune called one day and said, okay, there's so many resources out there, but I can't keep up with them. People keep handing me pieces of paper, and there's no way for me to disseminate all that and get it back out. So we're almost complete.
That's awesome.
And then we're going to do a postcard, that you can have on your table.
Yes.
With a QR code on it that will take them directly
great.
to those resources. And so, we're constantly going to have to keep updating.
Yeah, because they constantly change.
They're constantly coming online. But that's such a need because there are resources out there, but it's very difficult to get them in some sort of fashion that people can take advantage.
No, you're so right. And I want to thank you all for taking on that task.
Well, thank you for calling and giving us that idea.
Yeah, thank you, because that is going to be huge and even a game changer, because so many times people don't know, or you give them that piece of paper and they don't know where they did with it. But the fact that is, if it's online, it can go right online and look and say, okay, this is something that would be beneficial for me. Or a lot of times what our case managers do is that they'll set up individual meetings with their clients, and then they can go on to that page and say, okay, this is what we need to do, and help them make those calls and do those help them connect them with those resources.
Yes.
And that's going to be a game changer for those resources to be available. So thank you.
So we're running low on time, but I wanted you to talk about the graduation program that you came up with and developed,
my Thanksgiving lunch.
Yes.
And
how did that happen? How did you get that idea? And how have you? Because now you've got a lot of partners in that. But I know that was all you.
That was my baby. Yes. I just always know during the holidays when the first year I came in as a drug court judge, what I saw was the relapse was high during the holiday times, because a lot of times when people are dealing with substance disorder, they have lost contact with their families, and so they feel like they're out there and they're lonely during the holiday time. And so I wanted to have a Thanksgiving luncheon to honor them, and then also to be able to be a graduation time to let them know that they have a family support system within the drug court program. And so what I wanted to do was do something very nice for them. So I wanted it to be upscale, because a lot of times they feel like they're at the bottom of the totem pole.
And they're not worth that.
And they're not worth it. And so I wanted to make sure that I went above and beyond to make sure that they felt worthy and that they had that purpose that I always tell them that they have. And I wanted everybody who would be the speaker or who participated would be in long-term recovery.
Yeah.
And so what I do is every Thanksgiving around November, we do a large Thanksgiving luncheon at the Dannon Project. And so what we do is I have somebody who comes in and decorates it very nice.
And I'm talking to the nines. I'm not talking about just a little tablecloth.
Yes.
It is, every table is covered. Every chair is covered. Beautiful centerpieces. It is extravagant. It is beautiful. And
Thank you.
So many tables in that room. Like you walk in, it is packed.
Yes, yeah. We usually have anywhere from around 250 people that are in attendance. And then I also do a nice luncheon for them. And we serve lunch in the first year. And I know COVID has kind of played a role. I wanted to also... The first year I was able to give Thanksgiving baskets out to them, because I know it's hard during the holiday times for them. And a lot of them have families still that they need to feed. And so I wanted to do Thanksgiving baskets for them to be able to take as a Thanksgiving or a Christmas gift to them, that we care, we want them to succeed. And then we'll have speakers that will come in. And we've had some dynamic speakers who have had some powerful testimonies that when they come out, it's just a way to encourage them, to have them keep pushing forward, but then also give them an opportunity to recognize our graduates who graduate during our November time. And so it's been definitely something that I usually have a lot of resources there. So I know APC is there. We'll have different partners. I usually try to have anywhere from 10 to 12 different resource tables there. So
Yep, wrapped
while they're
around the
there,
outside.
while they're there, they can also get different resources or connect with different resources within the community. And so that is something that I'm trying to work on again this year. I
Yep.
usually pay for it out of my pocket. I have one donor that usually gives it, but I usually try to make sure
Wow.
that it's something that is done.
Yep.
Because I do care for the individuals who are in our courtroom.
And you find spoken word,
Yes.
artists,
Yes.
singers, all of these people in recovery.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
It is. Last year I had a little girl, London, who came and sung for us, and she blew us away. And so she was so powerful, and I saw individuals in the audience just crying after she sung. And so this year I'm starting this week working on the program and seeing, I'm going to try to, keeping my fingers crossed, going to try to get the mayor there this year.
Oh,
and
nice.
so, but working on some of the speakers that we can hopefully have this year, just to sow into individuals. And when they see people like the mayor, I've had the district attorney there, I've had the different councilmen there, when they see that they're supporting them and they want them to do well, I think that's an extra initiative for them to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
Speaking of support systems, as a couple, of course, we've struggled with 3 of our 5 children with serious addiction issues over the years. One of the reasons Carrie does what she does, that I'm involved as well. But talk a little bit about, in your experience, maybe 1 or 2 things that you see families do that is helpful. Maybe 1 or 2 things you see that they might do that might be getting in the way a little bit. Yeah.
So what I can say is a couple of things that I see that families do are, I think when they're there to support them, not necessarily enable them, but to support them and let them know. So a lot of times in our drug court program, the parents will also, we'll ask them, well, is it okay if your parent signs a release form? And so a lot of times our case managers have the ability to talk to the parents to find out exactly what they may need, because sometimes when you're in addiction, you're not always honest with your case managers. Yes. And so when we can have the parents who are on board and who are really willing to say, hey, my child is still struggling, they need help in this area of their life, I think that's very crucial for us to know, so that then we can connect them with those resources or get them the counseling that they need. And so that has been very instrumental with them working as a team with us to help support their loved one who is dealing with substance disorder. Yeah. Sometimes I do have the parents who come in into our courtroom, and they're willing to give them any and everything that they need. And so sometimes, giving them that extra money when, they know that money may not necessarily be going to the drug court program or what they may need to use it for. I see sometimes where the parents need some of that guidance to help them show how to love them and be that support system, but not to enable them in every aspect. And so I had one parent that came in the other day, for example, and the young lady unfortunately hadn't done anything that I'd asked her to do. So unfortunately she was going to be sanctioned to do a night or so in jail, and we were going to then make sure she was going directly to treatment, because she had several beds available but just didn't follow through and go. So we were going to transport her directly to treatment. Yeah. And so she had her parents out in the car, and she's like, well, my dad is out here. He's sick. I have to take care of him. And I said, well, have your dad come on into the courtroom so I can see. Because I was like, if dad's really sick, I don't want anything to happen with dad. So dad came in and talked a little bit about what was going on. And he's like, well, she's told me she's done everything. I said, well, unfortunately, sir, that's not the case. Yep. But he at first came in and he wanted to make excuses for her. Yep. But when he realized that she wasn't doing everything, he was like, you have to do what you have to do. Yep. And so I appreciated him stepping away and allowing us to be able to help her. He's like, I just want her to get the necessary help she needs. But that was huge for him to see, okay, now we're all working on one accord to get her what she needs versus what she may have been telling him. And so I just, like I said, it's huge when I see family support right there in the courtroom with them, because then I know if they hear what we're ordering them to do, that's going to help hold them accountable at home. And if they don't hear, then they can go home and tell their parents.
Yes. Yeah, there's in the material that we use in the family support group, that a line that we keep bringing up, and it's that, I will always love you, but the way I help you has to change. Yep. And that's what we are constantly coaching parents about is being thoughtful
That's
about how we help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's huge. And just I see some of the younger, even with the high school kids. Like I don't see the high school kids, but I'm big at prevention. Like I want to educate them before they find themselves in my courtroom.
Yes.
And a lot of times when I talk to certain parents, what I hear is, well, my kid would never do this. Or,
Yes.
my kid wouldn't have this. And then they find out
Right.
later their kid. And so sometimes just not putting up a wall, but listening as to what resources and what things you may do to make sure that you're educating your kids so that they don't find themselves in the situation of in my courtroom or
Yep.
dealing with, substance disorder.
Yep.
And so taking that wall down sometimes that I
Yes.
think sometimes parents put up because they don't want to hear like
Right.
this could be happening to my
Yeah,
child.
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So staying in denial is easier
Yeah.
than dealing with
Right.
reality.
It's one of the things we've had to do over the years is figure out how do we get to parents, because when you advertise it as, oh, this is about potential drug use, not showing up for that one. So we've had to be kind of creative in how to actually get in front of parents through work
Yes.
groups and
Yeah.
PTAs and churches and that type, to have some of those conversations
Yeah.
you're talking about.
To have the prevention conversation.
Yeah, and it's huge. And just like at the end addiction
Yes.
walk that you guys had, that trailer that was there
Yes.
from, that was so huge. Like all parents need to see that have kids in middle and high school, because there were so many stash places that I would have never ever thought to look in my child's room.
Right.
But I've even told some of my friends because I have kids who are teenagers, like, hey, and the first thing, oh, my kid would never do that, but
Right.
you don't know. So it's best to be educated so that we
Yes.
are making sure that we're well informed and that we can make sure we're preventing this before it actually happens.
Right. And I mean, that, it's subtle, but that is actually still a form of stigma that we're fighting.
Yeah.
My kids might sneak out, but they would
Yeah.
never do drugs,
Right.
because we put that into a different category. So one of the things we talk about when we're trying to do prevention education is let's open up this conversation and, when they're very young, and keep it going
Yeah.
all the way through, so that it's not the taboo topic
Yeah.
that we're not going to talk about. We're actually going to talk about it because
I
it is
agree.
so common.
It is so common. I mean, in court, I always ask, what age did you start using? And I mean, it's not uncommon for me to hear between 9 and 13 years old.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
10 to
And
12
so,
is,
yeah,
is
and so- and
average
that's-
average
Yeah,
age.
and that's why I was like, we have to start very young these days. I know if we're waiting to high school, it's too late.
Exactly.
Because they're being exposed in middle school, and with the
Yes.
access that they have to TikTok and all the social
Yes.
media accounts, it's even more prevalent
Yes.
for them to be exposed to it and think that it's okay.
Yes, and I mean, perception of risk has just gone way down for lots of reasons.
Yes.
But social media is a huge one.
Yes, it is.
Exposure, and it's normalized on
Yeah.
there.
All the time. Like the other day, I went to a training and then I was listening to the music in the car, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what they were singing about? Like, I didn't even understand that that's what they
Yes.
were singing about until I went to that training and realized that's what they're promoting for these kids. And
Yes.
so it's so important for us parents that we stay abreast of, everything that our kids may be looking at, what they
Yes.
may be listening to,
Yep.
who they're hanging out with,
Yes.
and so that we can monitor it to prevent,
Yep.
anything happening in the future.
Thank you on so many levels. Thank you for what you do every day. And I mean, I just don't even, sitting on the bench and having to be able to, because I said something to you like, what if you had a bad night? Like your golden doodles didn't sleep all night because of the storm.
Yes,
You
yes,
still
yes.
get up.
Still get up and put that smile on my face
Yes.
and still go to court.
And do it, yes. So thank you for that.
Well,
And thank you for your
you.
heart for each individual that comes into your courtroom. It is evident how much you
you.
care, and that matters so much.
Thank you. I
So,
appreciate that.
yes.
And thank you all for what you do. And we couldn't do, without resources like you all in the community, we couldn't do what we do in the court. And so I always say that, I couldn't do what I do, but for the different partnerships that we've made with different agencies in the community like yours. So thank you. And you guys are always there on Thursdays for me, so thank you so much.
Thanks for that opportunity.
Yes.
Thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
Folks, thanks for joining us for this episode of APC Recovery Cafe. If you want to find out more about how you can support efforts like Judge Fortune or the other prevention and recovery efforts of APC, go to apcbham.org, and we hope you'll join us again next time.
One of the things that APC is known for is being a connector because we're stronger together.
Not only are we there for those who are suffering through substance use disorder, but we're there for family members, and we really take our job seriously.
We all have personal reason why we're in this field. We're changing people's lives one community at a time.